because this was 2004. So in 1998, a researcher at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which is the nuclear research facility about an hour from downtown San Francisco. So he went on a date night to the theater with his wife to see the movie Enemy of the State. And in the movie, there's an all-seeing surveillance from the sky to track the protagonists like throughout the movie. So obviously that didn't exist at the time. And the movie, like I've never seen it, but I guess it makes a compelling case for why it would be wise to keep it that way, to not have this technology. But this guy sees the movie and he thinks it's a brilliant idea. And he's like, wouldn't it be amazing if such a device could actually be created?
Why is this always the case?
I know.
Like, do we
There's
not
always
have enough warnings? Why is it that every time there's something and everyone says that's an awful idea, look how bad this could be? Someone
right.
says, oh, obviously we have to do it.
Yeah, there's always that one person that's like, no, this would be amazing. So he's that one person. And this lab at first had been created to focus on like the development of thermonuclear warheads in 1952 to like keep pace with Russia. But by 1998, the lab had expanded its mandate beyond nuclear, but it remained focused on like national security and intelligence programs. So creating something like this would be right up this lab's alley. So he's like the perfect person to make this. Yeah, so after the movie, the guy rushed home, called his program manager, explained his great idea, and at work later they had a meeting where he explained it to like his colleagues, and many of his coworkers thought it was impossible to make with the current technology, but like a small subset said it would be possible very soon with like how technology was rapidly expanding. So they launched an in-house program to explore how digital imaging technology could be affixed to a satellite to produce something like the movie had. So they were looking at satellite at first.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but...
Yeah. And also, like, this still wasn't the first idea of, like, having an all-seeing camera in the sky. Like, Edward Teller, who was the founder of Lawrence Livermore Lab, like a decade earlier, he had proposed a project called Brilliant Eyes, which involved launching a constellation of several hundred small, cheap satellites that would orbit the Earth at 300 kilometers, which is like 186 miles, and arranged in such a way that all the Earth could be watched at all times. That was his idea. Which
That's
is
even worse.
Yeah, it's even worse. And at a conference in 1992, he suggested the information collected by these satellites could be put toward peaceful applications in everyone's interests, such as providing communications coverage in remote areas, warning of natural disasters, managing air traffic, and reporting on the weather. But this was later abandoned by the US government.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would not be used for, like, the good of the world.
No, nothing's ever used for the good of the world. It's only used for the bad.
Right, exactly. So I'm glad they scrapped that, but also that kind of reminds me of like Elon Musk's like Starlink. Like I know that's just internet, but like that's a similar idea of like having a million tiny little satellites up there.
Right. Wouldn't you... Why does everyone want to put junk in space?
I know. We have enough stuff. We're not going to be able to see the sun eventually.
Also, did they forget that, like, matter, like, we have finite resources, and if we keep sending shit into space, eventually it's just gonna be a husk of a planet?
Well, then we'll have, like, people that go out to space to, like, collect the junk back in. Okay, so they started with making, like, a camera attachment to a civilian helicopter to test the, like, camera technology. So in 2003, they like showed video footage to get investors to like make a real prototype, which is how it got like into the CIA and Pentagon's hands through like the call for technology. And Livermore presented at a Jason Defense Advisory Panel, which I guess is an independent group of elite scientists which advises the United States government on matters of science and technology, mostly of a sensitive nature. And they advise on a lot of different projects for the government, apparently. And they all are called like Jasons.
Hmm. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I kind of do like that. But they were so blown away by like the video feed that they invested $6.5 million in seed money to get a full prototype.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We need
So,
to stop putting men in charge of these things because I don't think they can think. They just
right.
said, "Oh, that's so
That's so
cool."
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. They are all men too, so probably not a single woman there, especially not in
Right.
2003.
No.
Um, And like at first the imagery couldn't be transmitted in a live feed from the air. Like Livermore suggested that it would be downloaded to be analyzed later. So like still would have issues at first with like being able to be proactive with the information. I don't know why that was their solution or whatever.
Right.
But Steve Siddharth wanted a live feed to be able to make decisions and take out targets like right away. So Dan Kress was convinced to give $200,000 seed money from the CIA's Intelligence Technology Innovation Center to begin working on software for a live link. And Dan Kress was a CIA intelligence officer who was an expert in seismic, acoustic, and electromagnetic surveillance. And like he was also at the Jason's meeting when Livermore presented this. Um,
That doesn't feel like a lot of money.
right. For
200,000?
a software, a brand new software, yeah, I feel like that's not
Right.
that much. I don't know. But yeah, they wanted to use Livermore hardware, but like software from somewhere else, because Livermore wasn't going to make that. So they hoped that Los Alamos would work on the software, while Livermore continued on the camera. But these two were famously rivals in the world of nuclear weapons development, and so they
Why
couldn't.
would they even suggest that they work together?
Right, yeah, they could not work together on a single project at all. So Los Alamos opted to build their own hardware, like the camera, and they created a four-camera setup that they called Angel Fire. So with the $6.5 million seed money, Livermore built a new prototype camera made with like six individual cameras strapped together, and they called it Sonoma, and or Sonoma. Don't know why I
Yeah.
said yeah, Sonoma. And thanks to Jason's endorsement, the idea was taken much more seriously at the Pentagon, like when they presented it. So Sonoma was adopted by the Army Research Lab less than a year after the Jason's meeting. And in February 2005, the Army took full control of development despite objections from Livermore, which they wanted to continue the work in-house to keep its hold on proprietary technologies its engineers had built. But the Army took it away. And the Army hired Logos Technologies to build the final sensors. And then the project was transferred to West Palm Beach, Florida for the last cycle of development and testing, like in preparation for deployment. And like during that last test, there was still some hope that like the two labs could come together on the project. So like Siddharth and several researchers from Los Alamos joined the Sonoma team in Florida, and for a few weeks they did work together. But then the Air Force Research Lab took control of Angel Fire from Los Alamos in a similar way that the Army did to Sonoma, and like many of the original engineers were removed from both projects.
Of course they did. What did they think would happen,
Right.
really?
Yeah. Yeah, that just seems like obviously that's what would happen. And like these tests they did at this time were like often on the cities nearby without civilians' knowledge. So that's great.
I can't say I'm surprised at
Right.
all, but
Yeah.
that is messed up. Like,
Yeah. Just tell people, like, that's really shitty. I don't know.
well, no,
Um,
don't tell people because they would freak the fuck out. But, like, maybe test it in a different country.
for a country that's maybe even worse, though, you get shot down.
Yeah, and get accused of espionage and then start a
Right.
war.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Do it over the desert though or something. I don't know. Do it where there's like nothing there.
Well, if they're yeah, they could have done it on like animals or something instead of
Yeah.
people. But
Or
I
over
guess
the
in
ocean, maybe. But they're trying to test it tracking vehicles and stuff. So they kind of need, I don't know. Some of the
right,
tests were in the desert with like researchers like pretending to, drive and stuff. Some of the tests were
okay,
like that, but they also did do it over cities. So I don't know, because I guess they wanted to test like seeing with buildings and stuff. Um, But okay, so Crawford and Marion were working like on this at the time, and they talked about the technology during the last days of testing before development and like speculated on how it would be used. And like they thought, patrolling the border in ports or finding survivors of natural disasters, like that's kind of what they thought it could be used for. And like these are arguably good things it could be used for, but Crawford like couldn't help but feel unsettled about the technology too. And like it was clear from the beginning that they had put something into motion that would have consequences like beyond the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like they knew.
people can't just stop.
Right.
We need like an ethics committee
Yeah.
for. I'm sure there are some, but
They're not doing very
there
well.
needs to be like required to have like an ethics committee for every single project who's not directly involved, who can look
Yeah.
at it and say, okay, kill it.
Right. That would be good. Yeah, because at this point it's too late. So.
Right.
But yeah, Crawford was a cameraman for Westcam, which was the filmmaker for the movie Enemy of the State, which Livermore went to him when they first were developing this for like, how did he film the movie and the camera work?
Oh.
Yeah. So he ended up quitting Westcam to work for Livermore full time on the project. And Marion was the one who presented to the Jasons, like for Livermore.
Okay, wait a second. He made a movie about why not to do it
Yeah,
and
but
then
he thought it was a good idea.
help them do it.
Well, he was the cameraman for he didn't write the movie.
Oh, okay, okay.
I mean, the point of the movie, whoever wrote it and directed and stuff, was to show how bad it could be, but I guess the cameraman
Okay.
was just like, "Oh, cool cameras. Let's make
Yeah,
this happen." I don't know.
that's his special
I mean,
interest.
I feel like that's why he was kind of one of the ones that was a little unsettled about it though. But all the other people that like were in the book and stuff like seem to like love this technology. Think it's like the best thing ever. So I think they're a little off on that. But it was this first one, it was ready to deploy in early 2006. So the program had a new name, which was Constant Hawk. And there were still skeptics in the Pentagon that said it wouldn't work to help lower the number of IEDs. So originally, Constant Hawk would be deployed initially for only 90 days. But it performed so well that it remained active in Iraq until the US withdrawal in 2011. So it was active for, what, 5 years? And it was also so successful that ground forces in Afghanistan requested Constant Hawk to be deployed there as well, which it did in 2009. And I assume it's
Okay.
still there, I guess. I guess we kind of
Hmm.
pulled out, but
I doubt
um
we pulled out surveillance.
right, yeah. Yeah, and the army also began working on building a larger version of the camera along with like a second infrared unit for nighttime surveillance operations. So now they're adding nighttime too. And so shortly after being deployed in Iraq in 2006, Constant Hawk was transferred to Task Force Odin, which stands for Observe, Detect, Identify, Neutralize. So Task Force Odin is said to have eliminated more than 3,000 suspected insurgents and captured hundreds more in its first year alone with this new technology.
Suspected.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how many people has this technology killed? A lot.
At least 3,000.
Well, that was just the first year.
Right.
Yeah, times
Suspected.
five
This is like the
years.
thought police. Like,
I know. Yeah, it is.
it just got chills.
It's bad. It's gonna get
Is the
worse.
thought police 1984 or is it Anne Rand? What book is that?
Should I look at
I
it?
never actually read 1984